All right, and away we go. Welcome to Niners Nightly. Larry Krueger back with you on this Monday, the day after the 49ers ran their record to 1-0 with a nice win in Seattle against the Seattle Seahawks. Welcome to Niners Nightly. We come to you from 6 to 7 o'clock, normally on KMBR radio, but when there is Giants baseball, we're over here on the KMBR YouTube side, and I believe there is Giants baseball, or if maybe tonight it's NFL football, which is why we're over here. It's the Monday night game going on. The Bears and the Vikings battling for Monday night supremacy tonight. Let's see, no, it's like a 7. It's on ABC. ABC, Bears and Vikings. Bears jumped out to a 7-0 lead. Caleb Williams rumbled in from 7 yards out, or from whatever number of yards out. Let me see it. It is 7-3 right now. 7-3 Chicago on top of the Vikings. So anyway, I want to get into the 49ers, and welcome to Niners Nightly. As I said, we come to you on the KMBR YouTube channel all nights where there is no Giants baseball until the end of the Giants season, and then every night we'll be on the radio. This week, we're on YouTube Monday and Tuesday. We're on the radio Wednesday and Thursday, and then back on YouTube on Friday. So YouTube Monday, Tuesday, Friday, radio Wednesday and Thursday. So, there's a lot going on. Kyle Shanahan spoke this afternoon at his press conference. One of the things he talked about was the kicking situation. Why don't we start there? Kyle Shanahan on the Niners kicking situation, the exact quote, he says, "We're looking into all that stuff now. There's options, just whether it's stay status quo, bringing guys for workouts, practice squad, but we're going through all that stuff right now. I'm just finishing with the team, and I know the personnel department's going to look into all that stuff and give us those options, but whenever we decide on something, then we'll address it with Jake." So, Shanahan in the post game was asked a very direct question. Is Jake going to be your kicker next week? And he's like, yes. Or, are you going to replace him before next week? And he's like, no. I forget exactly how the question was phrased, but it was basically a commitment to Jake for week 2. And it sounds like he's pivoting off of that, and they're at least looking at their options. They didn't want to get here. Jake didn't want it to get here. Nobody wanted it to get here, but also, this is very much the kind of position you either do or you don't, right? You either make it or you miss it. You either succeed or you fail. I mean, pro sports is very much like that across the board. It's very much a meritocracy, and if you succeeded or failed based on the scoreboard, so if you won the game or lost the game, whether you achieved your goal or didn't. There's no ambiguity about any of it. Where in life, that's not always the case. Sometimes, there's shades of winning, and we could have won, but we could have won more. We could have done better. We could have done worse. So there's more like shades of gray. But pro sports, it's about winning and losing. And then within that structure of football, you have the kicker position, which is just ultimately all or nothing. It's like, what's a good kicker? A good kicker is a kicker that makes kicks. What's a bad kicker? A kicker that misses kicks. The one thing about it is I keep hearing, oh, he's got a big leg. The bottom line is, if we had a debate on here between who's the best kicker that ever played, people would be starting and defending the guys who had the highest percentages. They wouldn't be defending the guy who's kicked the longest field goal. Cam Little for the Jaguars kicked a 70-yard field goal this summer. He's not like hands down the greatest kicker in the league because of that. Now, he's got a big leg, and I'm sure there's teams that would be intrigued by that. Don't get me wrong. Everybody likes a kicker who can make a long field goal. Heck, maybe someday somebody will make one from 100 yards out. He's on the goal line, and he still made a field goal on the other side of the field. He's the first 100-yard kicker in the NFL history. I don't think we'll see that, but it's possible. You never know. People are always getting bigger, stronger, faster. But the best kicker is not the guy who kicks at 70 yards. The best kicker is the guy who makes the highest percentage. And so Jake's got a big leg. Nobody's ever debated that. It's just about his percentage. Shanahan said the team is looking into all their options about the kicker situation. Says they may bring kickers in for tryouts. They may look at putting a kicker on the practice squad. They don't know exactly what they're going to do. Well, I'll tell you what they're going to do is they're going to move off of Jake Moody because he has not been a very good kicker since he's been here. And yeah, they didn't want to get here. They used a 3rd round pick on the kicker, which only kind of made it a more pressure packed situation. Cause then it's like, well, you don't want to get rid of this guy because you had a sizable investment in him. Like there's already enough pressure anyway without that sizable investment, but with the sizable investment in draft capital, that just makes it more high pressure decision on this one. And the Niners don't want to admit that they're wrong. They don't want to admit that they blew it with using a 3rd round draft choice on Jake Moody. Heck, Lynch just said on the radio 3-4 weeks ago that Jake's going to be the kicker here for a long time to come, so, but that we all are wise enough to know that's all based on making kicks. Yeah. If he makes kicks, he's going to be the kicker, but if he misses kicks, he's not going to be the kicker. If you make kicks, you get big contracts and extensions and everybody loves you. If you miss kicks, you see other kickers showing up for workouts every week until they decide to go with one of them. And that's basically what Shanahan's saying here. He's like, hey, we're going to take a look, see what options are out there. Maybe they'll hesitate. I don't think so. I think they will have another kicker by the time they get to New Orleans on Sunday. That would be my guess. They'll have another kicker. So, I mean, I don't know what there is to say about it other than they seem oddly stubborn about sticking with their kicker, and it can't all just be about the draft choice investment. It has to be something else. This kicker decision must involve multiple people internally and this and that, and there must be some reason they're so stubborn about sticking with the kicker. I mean, they moved off of Trey Lance, who they had a much more sizable investment in, much faster than they're moving off of Jake Moody. So they wanted this to work. They made the investment, and they've tried to give it every opportunity for this 3rd round draft choice on the kicker to succeed. And I'll say this, coming out of week 1, the 49ers going into the year really needed to improve their defense and special teams. The defense looks improved. The special teams does not. They had a penalty on the first possession that pinned them back on their own 5-yard line. Their return guy fumbled and picked it up. Their kicker missed a short field goal. They had multiple penalties on special teams. I mean, almost everything that could go wrong on special teams did go wrong. So, I don't know what the solution is, but I mean, I feel bad for Brant Boyer. I mean, the Niners weren't good under Schneider. They weren't good under Hightower. And Boyer was supposed to come in and kind of clean everything up. And, we were told it's all different, and it looks different. It feels different. It's the same. It's exactly the same. It's ineptitude. It's mistakes. It's crushing errors and turnovers. And it's just everything you don't want to see from your special teams unit. We've already seen. They invested a draft pick in a return man that is not really NFL. They used a 3rd round draft choice on a kicker. They used a 4th round draft choice on a punter. Almost all of their big free agent decisions in the offseason were about guys that can help on special teams. And here we are, week 1, and they won the game. But if they had lost it, they easily could have lost it on special teams. So we shall see. That wasn't the only news today. George Kittle, with his hamstring strain, is likely out 3 to 5 weeks, according to Ian Rappaport. 3 to 5 weeks for Kittle. Now, that's a crusher. Jake Tongas had a phenomenal day on Sunday, but that is a crusher to lose Kittle. It was going to be tough to lose any good player. But after you don't have Debo, you're not going to have Ayuk until, Thanksgiving. You don't have Demarcus Robinson in the first 3 weeks of the season because of the suspension. You needed to be able to lean on George Kittle to be that receiver. Oh, it's no big deal. The Niners don't have this guy and that guy. because Kittle's their number one receiver. Oh, but now Kittle's hurt, and he's out 3 to 5 weeks. And they have Farrell as a blocker. They have Tongus as a receiver, but they're going to have to somehow make do with those guys. So there you go. That's the latest on Kittle. Now let's move over to Juwan Jennings. Juwan Jennings had an MRI in his shoulder, came back fine, but the Niners are still awaiting the CT scan results. And then Shanahan was asked, hey, is Juwan potentially going to play in week 2 against the Saints? And he's like, yeah, potentially. So he's not ruling out Juwan. Then there's Brock Purdy, and Brock Purdy is dealing with a left shoulder injury, his non-throwing shoulder, and a toe injury that's not turf toe. Kyle said, we'll see when asked about his availability for this week, and then talked up Mac Jones as his replacement, as a guy that they have all the confidence in the world in Mac Jones. So it's amazing how we're 1 week into the season and Brock Purdy may not start in week 2. And he's suffered a lot of injuries recently. And it's like, hey, you know what? You can have a smallish quarterback who gets by on athleticism and runs around, but you got to protect him. There's not a big difference between Jalen Hurts and Brock Purdy, except the Eagles have built this fortress of an offensive line, and they continue to replenish it and rebuild it and look for improvements and guys who are upgrades. And the 49ers just keep ignoring their offensive line and saying, we'll just do it next year's draft. We'll upgrade it, but next year. We like to corner better here. We like to safety better here. They're looking for the perfect option, and in lieu of the perfect option, they're passing. They're kicking that can down the road. So we'll see. I mean, Pooney should help, but 49ers are a tackle injury away from Spencer Burford or Austin Pleasance, and that is going to be jailbreak on Brock Purdy. So, but Brock Purdy's got a toe injury. It's not turf toe. He said we'll find out in the next 24 hours if Brock, his status. But if he doesn't improve dramatically in the next 24 hours, it could be the Mac Jones show in New Orleans in week 2. Which would be, wow, what a quick turnaround that was. All of a sudden you got Brock Purdy. Looked like he's playing incredibly well. Then he had a couple turnovers. Then they came back and won the game. And you're like, no, yes, on the Tongus pass. And then you find out, by the way, 2 injuries, a toe injury and a left shoulder injury. I mean, if the 49ers are going to spend $265 million on a quarterback that runs around and is a little bit smaller than the league average, you would think that they would put a lot of emphasis on the offensive line and bulking up the offensive line. But it almost seems like, we'll do it. We'll get to it. But where's the urgency? They don't sound overly urgent about bolstering their offensive line. It's like, if the right guy falls to us, we'll take a look. But we're not going to go crazy here. We're not going to lunge for an offensive lineman. And the reality is they just don't have a lot of draft capital invested in their offensive line. It's kind of reminds me of the Giants baseball situation with pitching. If you have a philosophy that you can never have enough pitching, and you're choosing pitchers over hitters everywhere you look, then how does your offense ever get good? If you always have to have good pitching, you never can have a deep enough pitching staff. How do you ever wind up with a good hitting lineup in that, if that's your game plan? And the same thing can be said here. It's like, it's like if you're never going to emphasize, one thing, you're never going to get that one thing. If you're always going to emphasize D-line over O-line, then your D-line is going to have a lot of high-priced guys on it, and your O-line is going to be pretty decrepit over time. And that's where they're at. They got the oldest offensive line in pro football. So, and now you've lost George Kittle, who's going to miss a few weeks with the hammy. So that's where the Niners are at injury-wise. We didn't even mention that Ben Barch, the left guard, has a knee injury, and we don't know the severity. So you could go Connor Colby, rookie, starting at left guard. And Jennings, has had the MRI, but hasn't had the CT scan. We'll see about the shoulder. He may go or he may not go. The Niners did sign Kendrick Bourne, 1-year deal for $5 million. That's a rarity on an off day, but they did that today. And they also extended Colton McKivitz, 3-year extension for $45 million for McKivitz, $27 million guaranteed. Now, first of all, a couple of quick thoughts on those additions. One, on the Bourne addition. The Niners are looking for somebody who can play right away, and he knows the system. So that's really what that's about. But I mean, $5 million for Kendrick Bourne, that's an overpay. That's a bad overpay. I mean, Keenan Allen went to the Chargers a couple weeks prior for $8 million, and you're going to throw $5 million at Bourne. I mean, Keenan Allen's got so much more left in the tank compared to Kendrick Bourne, I would think, based on how he's played and the injuries that Bourne has had. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But I think the Bourne thing in a lot of ways is tied to Jennings. He's got the shoulder, and yeah, he might go this week, but he might not. And if he doesn't go this week, they're going to need all hands on deck. Also, with Kittle hurt, I mean, that just, how do you probably can't go, you may have to go with 3 wide receivers from time to time. And do you have 3 wide receivers? So a guy like Bourne could be, a replacement for Kittle to some degree, and also, a veteran addition at that wide receiver core. So you got that going on. Then you got the McKivitz signing. And, I just think that the McKivitz signing is interesting. It's like, I think they offered JJ and McKivitz both an opportunity to sign, a short-term deal that was club friendly. And JJ's like, no, I want to test free agency. And McKivitz is like, yeah, I'll do it. They just paid McKivitz 3 years, $45 million. That $15 million is absolutely the bottom of the barrel. That's the bottom of the market for the free agent offensive tackles. If he had gone to market as a healthy offensive tackle next year, I mean, his backup, Jalen Moore, got $15 million a year. So I think it's very reasonable to think that he would have gotten 20 or north of 20, despite the fact that I know the people here don't view him as a top tier offensive tackle. He hasn't missed a start since the start of the 23 season. He's very, very consistent. I think he's been much better player than Mike McGlinchey, and for a much lesser price. So to give him a 3-year, $45 million offer, that's a low ball offer. And he took it. He wanted to stay here. He wanted the security, and he's smart. I mean, the bottom line is these guys are gladiators. They play the sport where you could go down at any moment. You tear your Achilles or tear your rotator cuff or tear your pec or something like that in a game, and you might not have the same value in the open market in March. So for McKivitz to get a 3-year, $45 million deal with $27 million guaranteed, he probably could have gotten a 3-year, $55 million deal with 30 to 35 million guaranteed, maybe 30. I would say 30 million guaranteed was probably out there for him. So he gives away $3 million in guarantees, but he gets his guarantee right now. He gets $27 million right now. And for a guy from, he's from Ohio, I believe, who went to college in West Virginia, $27 million guaranteed is a hell of a deal. I mean, when your body is your livelihood and somebody's willing to give you generational wealth, just to bypass free agency in March. And Colton's happy here. He likes it here. He likes Chris. He likes the Bay Area. He likes the team. He likes Brock. He's got a good situation going. He doesn't want to go anywhere. So I think for him, he made a really good decision. He still gets $27 million guaranteed. He may have gotten $32 million guaranteed somewhere, if he had waited. So, by going now, he loses out on $4 or $5 million potentially guaranteed. But he gets his money now. And now if all of a sudden his body gets destroyed, he's got that money. He's got $27 million guaranteed. And he's in a place where he wants to be, in the Bay Area on a team that he wants to be on. So very interesting, I thought, on that front, that the Niners got a number of business items done today. They extended McKivitz 3 years, $45 million, 27 guaranteed. They acquired Bourne, signed him 1 year, $5 million. They announced that JJ's got a shoulder injury, that Barch has a knee injury, that Kittle's got a hamstring injury, and that Purdy's got a shoulder and a toe injury. And that's their situation going into week 2. So, we'll see. It's going to be very, very interesting. Now, the other thing is, what did you guys think of week one of the regular season? I mean, we haven't really talked about it yet, but we'll catch the chat here and see what people are saying in the chat. But I think that week one, to me, it was like the best and the worst of Brock Purdy. And in the first half of that game too, I thought so many of the Niners' best players really played their best in the first half. Nick Bosa had a hit on Darnold on 3rd and 5 on that first drive. Purdy, found Kittle on 3rd and 4, backed up inside his own 10-yard line on the first drive the Niners had. Place was howling, and he completed that pass. Purdy to Pearsall against Kobe Bryant on that 25-yard post pattern on the, great anticipation throw by Purdy. Just a dime. He really threw it before Pearsall even hit the break point, which is, you got to trust that your guy is going to be, in his benchmark spot where he's supposed to be, when he's supposed to be there, because you guys are playing this timing game. But Brock threw it just a perfect 25-yard dime to Pearsall and beat Kobe Bryant down the middle of the field on that first play. And then Purdy to Pearsall on the 12-yard next play, a great throw by Purdy. He's got a defender coming off the edge, and Kyle called a play action boot, and he carries out the play fake. He boots around. Boom. He's got a defender 5 yards away from him, bearing down on him with no blocker in between. And, so many quarterbacks would take the sack there, throw it away, no poise, just Brock stared the guy down and literally somehow threw the ball through the defender, through his outstretched arms, and completed it with zip, put it right on Pearsall's hands. It was a beautiful 12-yard pass. So Brock showed on that first drive, he's playing at a really high level. Then we saw Purdy go to Kittle when he was covered by Love and Witherspoon, kind of combo covering Kittle, and Purdy stuck it right in on him. We saw Purdy with a beautiful scramble where he showed his speed and his ability to really motor down the sideline. And then he hit Kittle with the touchdown catch on a beautiful out route, and the timing had to be perfect. He put it right on his hands. So there were some really good flash plays. D. Winters had some great plays early on against the run. I thought the 49ers early on really, I thought Purdy looked really good. And then he took a couple terrible gambles. Now the first one wasn't bad. The second one was horrible. Absolutely horrible. There's 4 defenders over there. You released it up high. You floated it into a gigantic crowd. There was no pass rush in your face for the most part. There was no real urgency to pull the trigger there. He left it high with nothing on it, in a crowd of Seahawk defenders. I mean, it was just a horrible decision by Brock Purdy. So, we got the good and we got the bad. There was plenty of both. There was some really good plays, and then there were some plays that just, you wish he could have had back. So, and then the touchdown at the end. I mean, he goes to Tongas, and that was one of those no. Yes. It was like that kind of a play. It was like it was like a heat check, a Klay Thompson heat check 3-pointer from beyond the arc or something. It's like, what the heck's going on? That was so low percentage. And even Shanahan said it today. It's like, they wish he didn't make that throw, but then, Brock thinks he can get it there, and he got it there. So it won the game. So it's like, it's like this great play. It was really a phenomenal play by Tongas, who attacked that ball. I mean, really attacked it in the middle of the air, and it was really, really nice. And then the 50-yard pass play from Purdy to Pearsall. I mean, I thought, in fact, we could show that one here. The Purdy to Pearsall, I thought, was on the 50-yard pass play was just a spectacular play. You need your, I mean, I can be critical of the offensive line from time to time, but on that particular play, the offensive line really stood up and gave Purdy time to throw. And so this was a double move. I mean, the
he swung out into the end.
Receiver can't make the double move if the O-line doesn't stand up in the protection. It's just really as simple as that. If the O-line doesn't stand up, you can't make that play. And so that's really it. The O-line's got to stand up in that situation. And here we'll put it back at the front. And here it is. Purdy's looking the whole time, pumps it, and then this is a dime. That's an absolute dime. And credit Pearsall, he gets a little separation on the tail end of this. Very subtle push off right before. And just, this is the final drive, and Tongas, that was another heads up play by Tongas, diving forward to making sure he had the first down. You get McCaffrey. Now here's the play of the game. 3rd and 3, gets flushed. Look how long he holds this. He's got a couple guys bearing down. He's got a third guy bearing down on the run. That ball looks a lot more dangerous than it was. I think Purdy felt like that was going out of bounds, or his guy was going to get it. And, Tongas attacked that ball. He attacked that ball, and that's what you're supposed to do. My son is playing high school football, and I'm like, hey, go watch that Tongas play. That's what you're supposed to do when your quarterback's in trouble. You're supposed to go to the ball. Try to make it as easy a play as you possibly can. Keep moving around. If you're covered, don't, make sure that if he finds you that you don't outfool him at the last second. Work to the open space. If you have to point, then point. If he has to point, then he has to point. If somebody has to direct traffic on that play to make sure that the quarterback and the receiver are on the same page, that's okay. Then you direct traffic on that play. But that was a terrific play by Purdy, and the throw he got away with it. Bottom line, it's a do or don't, deal. I mean, it's a win or else kind of a sport, but it's also, you either make plays or you don't. And the difference between making plays and not making plays sometimes is a sliver. And that's what it was from Tongas. Just an absolute sliver of an opening. And he attacked that thing with aggression. And it was great to see. So what are you guys worried about the most? I mean, what's the biggest issue coming out of week one? Is the issue Brock Purdy's health? Is the issue the Niners offensive line? Is the issue Jennings' injury? Is the issue Kittle's injury? Is the issue the number of touches for Christian McCaffrey? I thought the McCaffrey workload to me just seemed very unsustainable. Is Jake Moody's future the biggest issue? Is Ben Barch's status, having to go with a rookie on the offensive line? Is that the biggest issue? What is the 49ers' biggest issue, I think is the question. But just looking back at this game, a couple themes jump out. One, the Robert Saleh coming home to save this defense and to kind of rebuild it. I just am so encouraged by what I saw from the 49ers on the defensive side of the ball in this game. One, I mean, you got Saleh back in San Francisco to rebuild a defense that he built up the first time when he was here previously with Kyle Shanahan. And this time he's brought his mentor with him in Gus Bradley, who, is a mentor to Saleh. Now Saleh and Bradley are working together. Bradley was given the title of assistant head coach in charge of defense. He's very respected. And he knows this defense. He's the architect. So it's like being in the middle of a construction project and you got the architect there. It's always a good thing. And they've got a good staff, Chris Kacerek, Greg Scruggs, Johnny Holland, Daniel Bullocks, Ray Brown was brought in this year from Boston College to coach the corners. They got KJ Wright as their DQC, their defensive quality control coach. And then they went out in the draft and they drafted 6 defenders: Mikael Williams, CJ West, Alfred Collins, Nick Martin, Marquise Siegel, and Upton Stout. 5 of those 6 were active on game day. Nick Martin was not up. And we can talk about how these guys played. I thought Siegel played really well. I mean, he was, up against Cooper Kupp, and he's a smallish player playing in the box as a run defender. And I thought he was good against Kupp and good against the run. I thought Upton Stout was really, really good. I thought Marquise Siegel was good. He had a fumble recovery. He's playing with a lot of force. So I love the young DBs. Now, Alfred Collins and CJ West barely played at all. Collins played like 9 snaps. CJ West played like 7 snaps. They played combined 16 snaps. So, how raw are the Niners rookies? Well, they have 6 rookies that they love, all on defense. And really, half of them didn't really do anything in this game. West and Collins barely played, and Martin was inactive. So it was really Siegel, Stout, and Mikael Williams. And Mikael Williams absolutely was a 0 as far as the stat sheet. But, Seattle didn't run the ball well, and he was brought in to be a run defender. Seattle had run the ball in the preseason as well as almost anybody in pro football. They came into this game averaging 5.5 yards a carry in the 3 preseason games, and the Niners shut down their run. 26 carries is what Seattle had, 84 yards, 3.2 a carry is all they got. Walker was totally shut down. K9, the guy they call K9, 2 yards a pop for K9. Charbonnet wasn't a whole lot better. He was only at 3.9 a carry. So that's pretty good. The longest run of the day, there were no explosive runs. The longest run of the day was 8 yards. They had 1 8-yard run. They had 1 7-yard run. So, it was a very good job, I think, overall by Robert Saleh. And Saleh also, I thought he stole at least 2 series. There was the one where he sent D. Winters on the blitz on the 3rd down. I think it was the 3rd series of the game. That got the Niners off the field. Saleh is going to dial up some exotic blitzes. He's going to send some extra pressure. He's not going to just sit back there and wither and die because his front 4 is not getting it done. There was times last year where the Niners front 4 was not getting it done. They were not getting pressure, and Sorensen was just sitting back there going, communication breakdown. No, not communication breakdown. Not enough action up front, not enough games up front, not enough twists and stunts and movement up front. You gotta, if you can just rush your front 4 and you can just straight rush them front 4. If your front 4 are that dominant, they're just going to win all the time. Why get cute? But most teams don't have that luxury. Most teams have to dial up some games. Most teams have to get creative with their blitz packages. And you saw it in this game. Robert Saleh, the Seahawks came out in that first series. And while the Niners are their second series, I guess it was. And the Niners had moved the ball down the field. And what did they do? They ran it down the Niners' throat with Charbonnet. And they got on the goal line. There was the penalty against Stout, and they punched it in. And it's like, okay, Niners had kind of a passing drive. They had kind of a running drive, and it's 7-7. Well, now the Bears get it back on their next possession, and the momentum's kind of changed, and Saleh kind of knew it. And so he did not sit back there. Now, what Sorensen would have done in the past, or what I saw Sorensen do last year, is he would have this bend but don't break kind of an attitude about defense. And the Niners often would give up a first down, real early in the drive, playing somewhat of a vanilla type defense, and then start getting a little bit more intricate, a little bit more detailed in their coverages as the drive continued. Whereas Robert Saleh understood the dynamic, which is they just gashed us. We got to stop them. We got to stop them right away. And how do you best protect a young defense? If you're going to blitz, you blitz on the first 3rd down, because that's when they're freshest, right? That's when they're playing their best. You don't let the other team get a bunch of momentum and then try to slow down a team that already has offensive momentum. You blitz on the first 3rd down. You try to get them off the field, get your defense off the field ASAP, as fast as humanly possible. And he did that. And then I thought that move, combined with Kyle Shanahan opting to run the ball extensively in the second half, I thought was the difference in the game. If you go look at the game within the game. Now, the Krueger show, we have a brand new statistician that goes through all of our stats, and I was looking, who goes through the game with a fine-tooth comb, the Krug Show statistician. The Krug Show statistician presented me a report that I was looking at earlier that showed that the Niners ran the ball in the third quarter 61% of the time. So they're a very balanced team, but in that third quarter, Shanahan said, we are running the ball. And today he referenced that and said that he felt like that running of the football helped kind of them regain their confidence and took the run game a little bit away from Seattle. And I kind of agree. So I really love to see that. I love to see Shanahan committing to the run in that third quarter because it really set a tone. And also what it did was it made the game go by faster. It set a tone, and it kept the 49er defense off the field. I mean, if you go look at the box score from this game, one of the things that really stands out is the 49ers won the time of possession by a good margin. And that we talked about this, and I talked about this, that, you have to play complementary football when you have a young defense like this. If you play complementary football when you have a young defense like this, you shorten the game. You don't want a game that has 13 series or 14 series or more. You want a game that has like 8 series, 7 series, a shorter game. And how do you do that? You do that by continuing to run the ball. Let that clock continue to run the ball effectively if you can. And the Niners, I thought, they committed to the run in the second half. So many of Kyle Shanahan's failures, I think, in some of these big game defeats he's had, is that he gets a little pass happy, especially in the second half of games. And in this game, he did not. In this game, he committed to the run, and I thought it was a difference at the end. So when you commit to the run in the third quarter, guess what happens? Your defense in the fourth quarter's got more left in the tank, and that's what the Niners needed. There were times last year where they got to the fourth quarter and Bosa just looked gassed. The Seattle game comes to mind. The Niners were totally spent in the Seattle game at Levi's, and they could not stop Geno Smith running. They couldn't rush him. They were just totally and utterly exhausted. It was their worst rest differential game of the year. I think they had 7 fewer rest days than the Seahawks did that week. And it showed, man. It really, really showed. The 49ers were gassed, and it really showed. So, the one thing about the 49ers after 1 week, on one hand, I feel like, what were the issues of the offseason? Who's going to be the kicker? Who's going to be the O-lineman? What about their O-line, the special teams, the kicking situation, and the defense were the big, big things in the offseason. I guess you could say wide receiver separation as well. But really those 4, special teams, kicker, defense, and offensive line. Those were the big questions of the offseason. And here we are 1 week in, and the offensive line still looks like a problem. The defense looks improved, but the special teams sure as hell didn't. The kicker doesn't. So it's like they had like 4 things 4 things on their to-do list. And here we are, they're 1 week into the regular season, and I feel like 3 of them are still left undone. So, I mean, it makes you a little bit nervous about how the season's going to go. Special teams is still a major problem under Brant Boyer. Penalties, missed field goals, fumbles, mistakes, just not looking sharp. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say about it. Just it's remarkable that this has happened through 3 different coordinators. And then I know there's a lot of people, kind of the smart, Niner fan, and the Niners like to say, hey, you know what? Actually, our O-line is actually really good. I know you guys think it's a problem, but it ain't. It's actually really, really good. And you get the feeling that the Niners are kind of gaslighting us a little bit on this. How good is our O-line? And then you're like, well, yeah, they know it better than we do. And, we are relative football simpletons compared to the people that run this franchise and so on and so forth. So you start going for it. Yeah, you're right. The O-line's probably good enough. And then you see the game. And you're like, oh, wait a second. No. They're gaslighting us, and we're totally right, and they're wrong. The Niners averaged 3.3 yards per carry, despite having, according to some, the greatest running back going. CMC is like supposedly one of the best running backs in pro football. He averaged 3.1 yards a carry behind the 49er offensive line in week 1 against Seattle. So is he not the best running back in football? Is he not among the best running backs in football? Is CMC a has-been? Is CMC done? Or is he not running behind many holes? Is the O-line in front of him not very good? It's one or the other. It's one or the other. Either CMC's lost it and he's not what he used to be, and he's nothing close to what he used to be, and he's running behind a good line, but he's just lost it. Or CMC hasn't lost it. He's still very much the same player he always has been, and the line stinks. And then you mix in Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy was sacked once, hit 8 times, pressured 60% of his dropbacks. 60%. And guess who gave up the most pressures? Trent Williams, the future Hall of Famer. Brock Purdy was running for his life. He was pressured on 60% of his dropbacks. He was hit 8 times. Double, more than double. I think the Niners hit Darnold twice. And Purdy got hit 8 times, sacked once, pressured on 60% of his dropbacks, was running for his life. But his offensive line's awesome, right? It's a great line. And you football simpletons don't understand what a great line you're watching. So, which one is it? Was I imagining him running for his life? Was he not pressured on 60% of his dropbacks? So they're not an awesome pass blocking line, and they ran in one of the best running backs in football averaged 3.1 yards a carry. Do you see what I'm getting at? Maybe this 49er offensive line that is actually really, really good, maybe we're actually getting really, really gaslighted, that it's actually not very good at all. And why would it be good? Because you're always drafting defensive linemen and saying, we'll get that offensive lineman next year. It's always next year. So I don't know. That to me, I thought was really interesting. But, I will say this. I thought the 49ers offensive line did a nice job at times protecting for Brock Purdy. There were times like the double move that Pearsall got loose down the sidelines. It's a 50-yard bomb. You got to have some protection for a couple counts there to make that play. So it wasn't like it was consistently bad, but it wasn't consistently good. So there you go. That's one of the issues. I thought Ricky Pearsall looked really good. I was very nervous about Ricky Pearsall this summer just because it just seemed like a guy that, was fragile. Is he going to be able to fulfill his potential? Is he tough enough to take those big hits in the middle of the field and hold on? But they targeted him 7 times in this game against Seattle. He caught 4 of them for 108 yards. He had that 45-yard reception in the fourth quarter. He gets separation. He's got pretty good hands. He looks nice. The Ricky Pearsall that I saw in this game looked dramatically better than the Ricky Pearsall that we saw last year. Sometimes when you watch the opposition, you get a new appreciation for players as well. And one guy I have total appreciation for on the Seahawks is Julian Love. My God, all that guy does is make play after play after play after play. What an elite safety. He had the blitz sack of Purdy in the second quarter. He's amazing. It just ruined that series that, he had a sack that was like minus 10 yards or minus 12 yards or whatever it was. And the Niners basically had to just call a couple bogus run plays and tuck tail and punt, So Julian Love, just what a hitter, what a cover guy. He's just really, really, really good. So I think we've covered most of the topics that I wanted to hit on the Niner front. There were a few other things. I thought Demo Lenore played really well. I mean, Demo Lenore just continues to get better. 28 coverage snaps, did not allow a single catch. Didn't allow a catch. No yards allowed. Had one forced incompletion. Didn't allow a touchdown, obviously. Had a coverage grade of 75.6. Had Darnold had a 39.6 passer rating when targeting Demo. So I thought Lenore looked really, really good. And I thought that was great to see because I wasn't sure how he would play out on the island. And he's just a damn good player. He's good in the slot and he's good outside. D. Winters, I thought, played maybe one of the best games I've seen him play. 6 tackles, 5 solo, 2 TFLs, but it wasn't that as much as it wasn't the tackles that he was making. It was where he was making them. He was making them on the other side of the line of scrimmage, and he was firing. It was all gas, no brakes. I mean, he was seeing it, and he was not hesitating. So I thought Winters played great. And then Marquise Siegel. Winters and Siegel were the 2 defenders that played 100% of the defensive snaps. Siegel had 6 tackles and a fumble recovery. He was absolutely outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. Upton Stout, I thought, was really good. When you look at his game in its entirety, 21 coverage snaps, 5 targets, 3 catches allowed, 1 PBU, didn't allow a touchdown, had 1 forced incompletion, only gave up 32 yards passing. So not bad at all. The highest rated defenders for the Niners were Sam Aquinu, who had a 91 grade, and Nick Bosa, who won the game in the fourth quarter. And that's another example, though. It's like, if you can dominate the time of possession, then guess what? Nick Bosa's fresh in the fourth quarter, and he was. And he made the plays when they mattered. D. Winters had a 76.7 grade. Luke Gifford had a good grade. Warner had a good grade. Renardo had a good grade. Those are the highest graded defenders the 49ers had. All played pretty well when you look at those defenders. As far as Purdy goes, it's hard to say. Was it a good game? Was it a bad game? He was awesome in certain plays, and then, of course, he didn't take care of the football. But if you look at it and kind of back away and kind of take the macro view of the thing, no Ayuk, no Kittle, no Jennings for much of the day. He's now 4-0 in Seattle. He went 26 of 35 for 277, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, 5 runs for 17 yards. Niners converted 50% on third down. He hit 8 different receivers. And then on the game-winning drive, after he's thrown a couple of picks that you're sitting there going, oh, my God, I cannot believe that second interception was just horrible, atrocious decision. And there's Brock, though, with the money on the table. What did he do on the game-winning drive? 7 for 7. 7 for 7 for 68 yards and a touchdown. When it mattered most, the guy stepped up and played some terrific football. So I thought that was really interesting. As far as the lowest graded defenders, Pinnock had a 53.1, Mikael Williams 47.0, Tatum Bethune 46.2, Upton Stout 32.5, and then Alfred Collins 27.9. Alfred Collins definitely struggled in this game. And as far as Mikael Williams is concerned, I got to do more watching on the all 22, but 39 total snaps, no sacks, no pressures, no tackles, a 47.0 PFF grade. So, the whole book on him was young kid. He's very young, played in a rotation, doesn't have a very well-developed rush plan. That's what they said about him. That was the scouting report. He's big, he's strong, he's athletic, kid's an amazing talent, but he doesn't have a well-developed rush plan. So, I think there were guys that the Niners stayed away from because they were bad character risks. I think there were guys that they stayed away from because they were the wrong size. They were looking for bigger defensive ends, and they were looking hard at Mikael Williams. And I think they were probably looking hard at Shamar Stewart, and I think they probably took the wrong one in complete honesty. Stewart, by comparison, Mikael Williams has a 47.0 PFF grade this week. Stewart in Cincinnati had an 88.9 PFF grade, second highest among all defensive rookies and he had 3 pressures on the quarterback in a limited number of snaps. So, we'll see. We'll see. I think the Niners took the wrong guy there in Stewart, but we're going to find out. Next up, of course, is the New Orleans Saints, and we'll talk more about the Saints as we go this week, but they lost to Arizona 20-13. But I will say this, from just having watched their game this afternoon, Spencer Rattler can run. He had 30 yards rushing roughly. He passed it a ton. They had 46 pass attempts against Arizona. They wound up losing. He was 27 of 46 for 214 yards. And, as far as this game, I think the game plan here, first of all, it might be Mac Jones. But if the game plan's got to be run the heck out of it. New Orleans allowed Arizona to rush for 5.4 a carry. So they're a team that absolutely you can run the ball against. New Orleans also had 13 penalties in this game for 89 yards. It's Kellen Moore as the head coach there. It was his first game as an NFL head coach, and they didn't look too good. But they did produce on the defensive line. 5 sacks, 7 TFLs, 5 hits on the quarterback. Cam Jordan had 1.5 sacks. He had 2 TFLs. Cam Jordan can still play. He's in his 15th NFL season, but the former Cal Bear is still legit. And then also they had an injury. Their right tackle, Talieisi Fuaga, their first-round pick from a year ago, sat out the second half with a knee injury. So, I'll say this about the Saints. They're totally gettable, but if the Niners offensive line doesn't do a good job blocking, this could be a very, very difficult game. You got to block. You got to be able to block these guys because they've got a good defensive line. They can put some heat on you. They've got some speed on their front seven. It's not a bad defensive team. It's a young team at quarterback. It's a young team on offense, but defensively, there's Demario Davis. They've got some guys. So I think they are going to be an interesting team, especially if it's Mac Jones. If it's Mac Jones, how does he play? Does he go there? Does he play well? The one disappointing thing I thought about the opener that I wasn't expecting to see is I kind of felt like Trent Williams either just looks really rusty or this might be it for Trent Williams. He just didn't have the same movement ability. He didn't seem like he had the same juice. Now, maybe he just needs to shake off the rust. Maybe he'll get back out there and he'll be quite a bit better going forward. But I thought Trent Williams, he just, for the first time, he looked like a guy who probably is done at the end of the year. All these other years, it's like, oh, Trent can keep playing. He can keep playing. I don't know. To me, he looks like a guy who's probably entering his last year. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Niners signed McKivitz with the idea that they just didn't want to replace 2 tackles at the end of the year. Somebody asked me a question earlier about who was the week 1 best team in the league. Who would I say it is? It's probably between 4 or 5 teams. I would say it's either Buffalo, who, man, defensively, they just get gashed early on. But then Josh Allen looks amazing. Ed Oliver looks amazing. I mean, they rallied against Baltimore, 16 points in the final 4 minutes of the game. So maybe Buffalo beating that good Baltimore team and coming from behind to do it, they might have been the most impressive team. I'll say this. I saw Philly beat Dallas without Jalen Carter, and A.J. Brown didn't do a whole lot. So they were impressive for sure. I saw the Chargers beat Kansas City. It's their first win over Kansas City in 4 years. And there's no doubt that Justin Herbert looks like he might be ready to have his career year. So the Chargers look good. So Bills look good. Chargers look good. Eagles look pretty good. Rams did a nice job defensively at shutting down the Houston Texans. But I think if I got to go with one team that looked the best, I think I'm going Green Bay. Looking at what Parsons has given their defensive front, he barely played, but he played well. And then they beat Detroit. Defensively, Green Bay held Detroit to 46 yards rushing. Detroit averaged 2.1 yards per carry. That to me was, I would say Green Bay was probably the most impressive team of week one. They just looked really, really good. And I just think, it's funny. I also saw something today. They were having a little back and forth on television, and they were saying, I know it's only week one, but like what would come next, right? Like, I know it's just week one, but, and they had a number of interesting takes. One of them, guy said, I know it's only week one, but Daniel Jones looks like a good quarterback in Indianapolis. He was 22 of 29 for 272, a touchdown, 2 rushing touchdowns in the win over Miami. Indianapolis scored on their first 7 offensive possessions. Is it possible Daniel Jones was just being weighed down by the terrible New York Giants? It's possible. I know it's only week one, but Trent Williams looks like this is the end of their line. I mean, he allowed 6 pressures. He had a pass blocking grade of 50.1. He had a run blocking grade of 55.8. I don't think Trent has looked like that in a while. I know it's only week one, but the New York Giants probably need to go at Jackson Dart over Russell Wilson. Did you see Russell Wilson? 17 of 37 for 168. Wilson, they've announced already that Dable and Shane have announced that it will be Russell Wilson starting week 2 against Dallas. So they're not going to Jackson Dart just yet. I know it's only week 1, but Justin Fields, I thought, looked really good for the Jets against the Steelers. That was the best I've seen Justin Fields look. He looked really good. Thought he was moving well. He was throwing with anticipation. He looked decisive. I know it's only week 1, but the Detroit Lions, I think, have a real problem. They average 2.1 yards per carry. Frank Ragnow is retired. Kevin Zeitler left in free agency. They can't really run block the way they used to run block. They lost Ben Johnson. They lost Aaron Glenn. They lost both their coordinators. But Goff was operating behind the best line in football. And to lose Ragnow and Zeitler, those are 2 of the best interior linemen in all of football. And to lose them in the same offseason. And these numbers, Goff over the past 4 years has led the NFL in QBR when unpressured. But when he has been pressured over the last 4 years, he's 28th in the NFL in QBR. So it's all about pressure. And they've had this awesome line, and you haven't been able to pressure Goff. But now they're going to be able to pressure him. And they don't have much of a backup quarterback. And I think Detroit is going to have a rough year. They won 15 games last year. Everybody thought, oh, the Super Bowl, the Super Bowl, the Super Bowl. Nope. Their Super Bowl window is going to come and go before they ever even go to a Super Bowl. So thank you, Dan Campbell, for his reckless coaching in the second half at Levi's. And otherwise, they would have gone to the Super Bowl in Vegas. Instead, it was the Niners. I know it's only week 1, but Micah Parsons is a force of nature. 29 snaps. He had 1 sack and 3 pressures and looked really good. I know it's only week 1, but you know who looks really good? The Bengals defense. They got Al Golden to leave Notre Dame. And you know what? The Bengals have Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow. They've got some of the best weapons in football. Now they got Al Golden as their defensive coordinator. They held Cleveland. Now, granted, it's Cleveland, to 16 points. 16 points. Thought that was a phenomenal day by Cincinnati's defense. And I know it's only week 1, but how about Aaron Rodgers? 4 touchdown passes. He took 4 sacks. The Steelers going up against the Jets, but Rodgers, 4 touchdown passes, and he looked good doing it. Looked really good. I mean, we forgot that Rodgers can still sling it, and he might not be done. Rodgers may have a little bit more left in the tank. So there you go. A little breakdown of week 1. That's going to do it for us. Todd Ramey says, it was Cleveland, Larry, LOL. Yeah, I know. It was. You got to factor that in. It was Cleveland. We got this one from B. Lauren. He says, why is Mac Jones a backup in a league that starts Spencer Rattler and J.J. McCarthy? Yeah, seriously. If I was Mac Jones, I'd be looking at those guys going, hey, man, I need to get back out there. Mac Jones is going to make some money. Mac Jones is going to benefit from having been in San Francisco. He's going to go somewhere else probably in a year, and he's probably going to make some money, and he's probably going to look pretty good. This is where quarterbacks come to kind of rehabilitate themselves, and then they move on to something else. All right, that is going to do it for us. Thanks to all of you guys for jumping in. I'm back with you tomorrow night at 6 o'clock for another edition of Niners Nightly, as we will talk about everything that happened on a Tuesday in Ninerland. And then Wednesday night, Thursday night, we'll be on the radio. Friday, we're back on the YouTube. And Sunday, we'll be in New Orleans for Niners and Saints. But that's going to do it for us tonight. Thanks to you all. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow at 6 on The Sports Leader.